Welcome back to another roundtable. My name is Adam. I have Rusmin with me.
Hello.
Victor.
Hi everyone.
Today we're going to chat about Singapore banks and their recent annual general meetings.
Yeah.
So Victor attended all three.
Yep.
DBS,
all three banks.
OCBC and UOB, and he asked some questions as well. And other shareholders also asked questions, and we're going to share what we learned from those AGMs, because I think we kind of preach this. You know, if you have the time and you're interested in this company, do take the time to go down and listen and go and visit and attend an AGM, because you can learn some insights that you can't get from the annual reports or just reading on the internet. You kind of get to meet the management as well. So we tend to do this for the companies that we like, just to get more information, just to suss things out. And Victor did this for the three banks.
Yes, correct.
All right, so tell us your the first key takeaway that you got from all three banks.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I think most people ask is actually the interest rate.
Okay.
Right, at the point of time during the AGM. I think in the DBS AGM, someone actually asked the CEO of DBS, like, what do you think about the interest rate? Right, will it reduce? Because at that point of time, the general consensus is actually the Fed will actually reduce the interest rate by end of year because of all those turmoil happening in the banking industry, right? So what the CEO actually mentioned at that point of time is that he thinks that the interest rate will stay for the rest of the year, stable for the rest of the year. Probably at 2024, it will start to reduce, but for this year, in fact, he thinks it will be stable because the inflation is still very high. So the Fed still cannot cut the interest rate. And in fact, he thinks that the interest rate will continue to increase, which in fact, just recently, the Fed actually increased the interest rate by 25 basis points.
All right.
Right. So I think it came out as what he predicted. Right.
Okay.
And he says that bank will benefit on short term on this interest rate spike for all the banks, right? This is the first thing. The second thing he talks about the interest rate is someone asked him whether the interest rate, do he thinks that you'll go back to the low interest rate and all this. I think based on his perspective, he thinks that we won't go back to the 0 to 1% interest rate. He thinks that is over. He said that the interest rate should normalize between 2 to 3%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the view that you got from the DBS CEO.
Yes, the DBS. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, I think for the OCBC and UOB, I think nobody asked about the interest rate question, so there's not much about it.
All right. I think one of the news that hit a lot of headlines was basically Credit Suisse.
Yeah, correct.
And what's happening over there, and I think some shareholders were concerned about how this could affect Singapore banks. So what happened at the AGMs? Did anyone ask about this?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Man, this is a hot topic in the AGM, right? In fact, I think probably the same shareholder went to all the AGM and asked the same questions, right? To all the three banks, right?
Okay. It wasn't you, lah.
It wasn't me. Someone else actually asked the question, right?
Okay.
So it's a very hot topic, right? Like how can DBS, or OCBC and UOB, buffer from all this Credit Suisse thing, right?
Yeah.
So actually someone in DBS AGM actually asked this question, I asked the CEO, he said that, looking at DBS, looking at Credit Suisse, both of them have quite similar regulatory ratio. The CET1 ratios seems to be quite strong and same, but why in the end Credit Suisse still went down, right? So that was the question that asked the DBS CEO, right?
Very good question.
Very good question, I think. In fact, I learned a lot after the CEO actually answered. So CEO actually emphasized that, right? That actually Credit Suisse the downfall is not due to the lack of capital. He thinks that in the business of banks, right, it's all about trust, right? And what Credit Suisse do is that they actually, maybe the depositor or the investor lost trust in them, right? Because throughout the years, they did report a few losses throughout the years, and also they have a lot of scandals, like the investment they make actually didn't turn out very well. So that caused a lot of trust issue with Credit Suisse, and they got some difficulties with the US regulator also at that point of time, right? So DBS actually, they say that bank business is trust, right? So they say that DBS do not have all this issue, right? They are being profitable. They are ranked, top 5. In terms of ROE and the best performing banks, right? They also mentioned one thing that is caught me like, wow, that's a very good insight. He said that if right, all these European banks, right, they were to adopt the way MAS calculates the CET1 ratio, right, their CET1 ratio is going to be lower. So if Credit Suisse, now you're saying that Credit Suisse have the similar CET1 ratio as DBS, right? And if Credit Suisse were to adopt the same method that MAS implement, right, Credit Suisse is going to have lower CET1 ratio. That means our regulator here is very, very strict.
Okay.
Right. So that is also a good sign about. I think the regulator part is a very good sign in the banking industry.
Yeah,
right?
I think the thing about Singapore banks is that if I use a Singlish term, is that MAS here is very kiasu.
Yeah.
To make sure that the banks here
rock solid.
Rock solid, because they just want to make sure that nothing like that happens. No bank runs, stuff like that. The trust is implicit among all of us here, and the banks the local banks anyway. So basically, the CEO was saying that the reason why Credit Suisse kind of like failed is because the depositors lost trust.
Yes, correct.
Then that shouldn't happen with DBS or any other local banks.
Because he says that DBS, have all the good track record, and of course they also benefit from a major shareholder that owns them.
Okay,
that people trust. Right?
Yeah.
That's what the CEO said, and everybody start laughing at. I mean, all of us know who's the shareholder.
Okay, so I guess that kind of like assuage the shareholders saying that you don't have to worry about this Credit Suisse issue.
Yes, correct. Then I think someone also asked the same questions in the UOB and OCBC, which is more of like a family-run business, right? So for UOB and OCBC, I think in general they also understand the issue, and they actually buffered for it, right?
Okay.
So if you look at UOB, right, in fact, right, if you go to UOB, you look into their balance sheet under the cash part, right? I think it's notes 24. They have this thing called non-restricted balance with the central banks, right? Non-restricted means is they put the money with the central bank without there's a restricted amount that they have to put in the central bank because of the CET1 ratio, right? But this is non-restricted, but they continue to put into the as a buffer, with the central banks, right? And they also get returns from there, right? So if you look at UOB, they literally have about 42.3 billion, right? And DBS about 41.5 billion. OCBC is about 900 million. But then they have money in the money markets placement and reverse repos with the central bank. So that's about 28.4 billion. So they add up, actually OCBC about 29 billion. Okay. Whereas the other two banks about 40 plus billion. Okay. In fact, during the UOB AGM, they say that they have a very big concern about the moving forward of the economy.
Okay.
So that's why they are beefing up on this amount. In fact, right now they still continue beefing up that amount. Right.
Okay.
So that was the outlook for UOB. Whereas when I go to the DBS, generally the CEO outlook is quite positive moving forward. Right?
So it was only UOB that was a bit more pessimistic.
Actually, not only UOB. OCBC, when you go down there, I think I asked that question. They actually also quite pessimistic about the outlook moving forward. So they also try to beef up the capital and tread with cautious. Right. I think that is usually the characteristic of family-run bank, right? I mean, like at the end of the day, if they were to fail, nobody's going to save them, right?
Okay.
Because they are.
So I guess they're just more conservative.
They are very conservative.
Okay.
I think it's a good thing to be conservative.
Okay.
Right. So I think but they say that they are ready to buffer, and they think that they can handle all these crises and all this. Then it won't be like Credit Suisse. Okay. So that's the thing that they talk about. And after that, I think people also bring up the concern about. Not concern, but the thing about Basel IV.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So basically now we are at Basel III, or Basel 3.5, I can't remember, but around that 3 or 3.5, right? And they're going to shift to Basel IV in the next few years, right? And Basel IV is going to benefit the local banks, right? Because the local banks, right, if you look at them, right, DBS have 14.6% CET1 ratio, 13.3% for UOB, and the highest is OCBC, 15.2%. So with the Basel IV happening, right, they're going to relax on the requirement. So that means there's less capital required to be tied up. So that means there's additional capital going to come back into the bank without being restricted.
Okay.
And this capital can either use to run their business, or they can use to give it back as dividend. Okay. So someone asked about this question, and in DBS AGM, DBS management actually says that if they meet the necessary operational capital, right, then they may consider to actually give out as return capital to the shareholder. Okay. But for the UOB and OCBC, as usual, their outlook is very gloomy. They think that they should keep more cash. And UOB said, in fact, they should put more money back into the reserve and keep it, right? And OCBC says that they are concerned. They want to keep more cash. They don't think about returning capital.
Okay,
right?
so only DBS is considering it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a may. And they can't give you any forward projections or anything like that. Yeah. But that was a question the shareholder asked, whether the capital will be returned.
The two family-run bank, they do not want to consider that. They just want to hold it as a buffer.
All right. So I think when it comes to the local banks, I mean, their dividends are pretty solid in a sense. I'm sure someone asked about dividends, whether it's, I guess, going up or down or whatever the policy is. Anything about that?
I think generally people are more in favor of how DBS actually give out the dividends, like on quarterly basis.
Okay.
And they even sort of like say that, okay, if on track, your end of year dividend should be 1.68.
Okay, so they actually gave that sort of indication.
Yeah,
okay.
correct. So when people goes to the UOB and OCBC, they try to answer the same question. Can you be like DBS, give them forward, and also give quarterly dividends and all. Have you considered quarterly dividends? But sort of like UOB and OCBC, they sort of give the similar answer, right?
Okay,
even though they are two different banks, right?
Yeah.
So they say that I think half a year is good for them. Sort of like they say that half a year is good for them. They want to see their capital requirement and all this. They think quarterly is too tight. They want it, to be more 6 months to see, okay, the capital okay, I give out dividends.
It gives them more flexibility to decide how much they want to pay out.
Yes. And basically, they don't want to consider quarterly. They just and also they ask about whether you can give indications,
Correct.
I think they say, we can't give forward, forward-looking statement and all this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's for the two family-run, sort of like family-owned bank. Sorry, not family-run. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I think that was any other. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, that's the only thing. These are only insights that you can get when you kind of like attend a live meeting. It's a closed. I mean, it's not for the public. It's for shareholders. So certain things can be said over there, and you can't get that from anywhere else.
Yeah.
Or you could, but you got to find it somehow.
Yeah.
But this is the most direct way to get all this information, and it can get really interesting as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Did anyone ask for about the dog gift?
Any dog gifts? I mean, there used to be so many for AGMs.
I can't remember. I think
you didn't bother. He just went in and out just for the information, and that was it.
Yeah.
So you didn't see any good dog gifts or any makan, any food?
I think OCBC's food was pretty good.
Okay. So that's feedback for the other two banks. OCBC's food was better.
I think DBS gave a voucher.
Okay, voucher.
Yeah.
All right.
UOB, I can't remember. I just went off with it.
Okay. So but pretty much very insightful.
Yep, correct.
To just attend all the three banks.
Yeah, correct. I think the way the CEO, especially the DBS, they mentioned about how do you look out for banks that can prevent Credit Suisse
scenario happening.
That I just shared with you. That's very good insight, right? And also the good insight that MAS is very strict, right? That is also very good insight that I know I can sleep well with the local banks because I know my local regulator is so strict, right? Unlike other countries' regulator.
Okay.
Right?
So I think that's a pretty good takeaway from the AGMs, all three AGMs that you attended. How about a quick update on the valuation of the three banks?
So if you look in terms of DBS, they are still traded above one standard deviation. The 10 years average, they are still traded at above one standard deviation, right? But the dividend yield is about 4.7%.
Okay.
UOB is about at fair value, at the average, 10 years average, right? Dividend yield about 4.8%. The current among the three still seems to be the cheapest in terms of valuation is still OCBC. It's trading in between the one standard deviation below and also the average. Just in between, right? And the yield is about 5.4%.
Okay.
Right? Of course, with the recent turmoil with the banking industry, with so many news like banks like collapsing or asking for potential sales and all this, we may see some opportunity in the bank industry because our Singapore, I would say, is solid, right? With strong regulator. I mean, if we continue to be pressured, I think there's a good time to actually really look at the Singapore banks.
All right. So that's the current an update on the valuation of the banks and the yields as well.
Yep.
No recommendation to buy or sell any of the stocks that we're mentioning, not the banks or anything like that. Strictly for your information. But so this is what you learned from the AGMs, and I think thank you for going because we didn't have to go. You just went for us, and then you could tell us everything. But if you ever have the chance to go attend an AGM, not just the banks but any other company, do spend the time. It's quite if it's your first time, it's quite interesting as well. I remember my first AGM.
Do they have the hybrid AGMs arrangement for those who can't attend?
Nowadays we have that because of COVID,
I
post-COVID.
think the banks are all
Physical.
They don't have
Physical
don't have
only.
the hybrid. Yeah, the
Yeah.
physical. Yeah, but some of the companies they have
Yeah,
the
they
hybrid.
do have
yeah.
a hybrid, and then you can attend
Yeah.
online, which is I feel not as. It's not as. I don't feel like I absorbed as well.
Well, yes.
Just somehow being there, listening to
Yeah.
everyone asking the question, just being in that space, kind of like preps your brain
Yeah.
to like just absorb the
Yes, yeah.
information.
And of course,
better.
some of the AGMs door gift are good.
Yeah. Why not? Okay. So I hope that was a pretty good update on the Singapore banks and their recent AGM. So, I mean, it's AGM season. It just passed, but we have been attending the AGMs as well. And I thought we should share the banks because, they're kind of like a big thing for us and for many of you as well, maybe. So we hope that was very insightful for you and that was very helpful with the updates that Victor shared. So thank you so much, Victor, for attending all the AGMs and sharing your insights and what you learned. All right, so with that, I think that's pretty much it.
Yep.
All right, so my name is Adam, Rusmin, Victor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And if you like this roundtable, please hit the like button. Tell us we're doing a great job. Any questions about the banks, anything else you want to know more about from the AGM, if we can share them with you, please ask them in the comment section and we'll answer them. And of course, subscribe to our roundtable. Many more roundtables like this coming up, and we'd love to see you again.